Hey YouTube friends, it's Marianne here, and I am just embracing this beautiful morning, which is not a usual thing for me because I am usually always nice funny crow going by. I am usually always embracing the night. I'm definitely a night owl, but recently I've had a migraine a couple of days ago that got me on a really weird schedule. It made me even more of a night owl than usual, as I had to be put down until about 7 p.m. and got up, and I have not been able to get into a regular schedule ever since. But this particular message is going out, and I'm dedicating it to Logistically Misinterpreted, and I'm also looking this out to a guy I think by the name of Hakeem. If I miss your names, I apologize. My ability to remember short-term memory right after I've had migraines is not the best, so please do not take it personally. But I wanted to do something special for the two of you because I think we've been having a really good conversation, and it reminded me of other conversations that I've had recently, and all these conversations deal with proselytizing, and I want to respond because I understand it from different points of view. And on one hand, as someone that is very much progressive, and that is largely default by virtue of what I am. I am a brown person who was adopted in a mostly white family, so from the get-go, I was in the conservative Bible Belt here in Dallas, Texas, and my parents had to deal with the repercussions, social repercussions of interracially adopting, and it was hard. I mean, that was 1977. I'm 47 years old, so that was not an easy thing for them to deal with. And they literally, the day they presented me, they said that half the people got up and left in protest because Laura's, she's brown, they're white. Ironically, my mom is actually part Native American, so anyone that looks like me from Latin America, we look this way because we're mostly Native American. If anyone from Latin America looks white, it's because they are pretty much Spanish. But so anyway, it was a big to-do. And some people pointed to the Bible to argue why there shouldn't be interracial adoption. And I've seen the Bible be used for a lot of things to justify hate. People look to the Bible to justify the killing of Native Americans, genocide of Native Americans. People look to the Bible to justify slavery. And people have looked to the Bible to be a source of inspiration for feeding the hungry, healing the sick, caring for the stranger. And I've seen similar things happen in every religion you can think of. And as someone that has studied multiple religious faiths and have friends among clergy of many, many different types of Christian traditions, that have friends with many, many different types of rabbis, from Orthodox, Hasidic, and progressive, all the gamut. If you don't believe me, you can Google around. You'll see me hanging out with my rabbi friends, imams, who has good friends among Native Americans, traditional indigenous spiritual leaders, who's hung out with Yoruba people, Igbo people, from Africa. I've met with, people that are Maori, traditional Maori. And in many indigenous traditions, I've also met a lot of people that blended their original indigenous traditions with an Abrahamic faith too. And so I've seen a whole gamut, you name it, whether it's ancient traditional indigenous traditions, whether it's New Age doctrine, whether it is Abrahamic faiths, whether it's all Western or Eastern, Sikhs, whatever, Hindu. I've met so many beautiful people, and I'm going to cuss here in a minute, so I'll warn you if your sensibilities get offended. I have met an asshole from just about every religion, and I have met an incredible, beautiful, brilliant, uplifting, inspirational soul from literally every religion. So, as I've shared with many people, I was accepted to be ordained as an interfaith minister, and unfortunately, my mom was dealing with her with her Alzheimer's at the time, and I had to put it on hold because COVID hit, and there was just no way I could continue to oversee the work that the Mimsy Institute needed to continue doing, which involved a lot of things that we put more concentration on during COVID, because it was about really helping people survive, whether it was getting, all the the masks for people that were often underserved areas, largely the Native American communities, whether it was moving our food that was originally feeding 2,500 families a day in Dallas to 2,500 families a week in Dallas to 5,000 families a day. All these things took everybody. And, for example, our food source program, it's led by a very conservative-minded Christian minister, Reverend Todd Collier, but it was formed by people that were Shinto, that were Muslim, that were Hindu, that were Buddhist, from every religion you can think of, worked on getting all the data and everything necessary so that we could launch it. And it is as of last November, it's saved $55 million worth of food being thrown to landfills and gotten it to places in need. And I can tell you that whenever there was an emergency going on, it never struck any of our mind to say, if someone came to us and said, I have food, we never said, what religion are you? Are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you moderate, progressive, conservative? Oh, are you Christian? I'll only take some food from you if you're Christian. Wait a minute. Are you Muslim? Because I'm not going to take any food from you if you're Muslim. Of course we didn't do any of that. All we said was thank you, and we looked that person in the eyes, eye to eye, and said, I recognize what a beautiful and heartfelt gesture this is, and on behalf of all the people whose names I will never know all of them, but I want to tell you, thank you for making a difference in this world, and thank you for helping people, and not having to really know them, or not having to expect that they are like you. The importance of that is, if we are ever to move forward in this world, we have to care about people that don't look like ourselves, think like ourselves, believe like ourselves, act like ourselves, have the same accent like ourselves, have a sexual orientation like ourselves. There's so much diversity in this world. And as you see the floods and things that are going on, I saw someone who posted something and they said, I don't know any LGBT people that are helping those in need. I'm like, I'm bi. I fell in love with a man, but if his soul had been in the body of a woman, I would have fallen in love with her. I recognize that soul that is my beautiful husband, but biologically, I was equally attracted to either gender. It just so happened that I found a soul whose intellect and compassion and passion to help this world was a great match for my own, and he is an incredible challenge to me every day to try and be a better person. So hats off to Joshua, my wonderful husband. But point is, you don't know what my sexual orientation is. And this is someone who actually has posted, thank you, I'm so glad you're doing this good work in the world. And then they put something else up saying, I don't know any LGBT people who care. And I'm like, hey. We make a lot of assumptions about each other. And when we're trying to tackle challenges, we have to step away from those assumptions, because there's a lot that I can learn from you. And if I'm ever in the mindset that I can't learn from you, that's a pretty good indication that the problem is with me. Because even the world's biggest bigot, a-hole, whatever, the more someone's like that, the more I'm actually seeing someone who's hurting. And as I was sharing with somebody recently that was following me on my YouTube page, if you feel the need to, when you're proselytizing, diss someone's existing relationship with the divine, then you're not actually trying to help them come closer to spirit, God, whatever you call that, goddess, whatever you want to call it. You're not trying to help them get closer to God, because you're dissing the way spirit is already touching their lives. You don't know what miracles they've experienced. I've experienced incredible miracles in my life. Absolutely incredible miracles in my life. I shouldn't even be here by the basic way the world flows. I just happened to be born in 1977 on Mother's Day at 7:11 a.m. And all of those synchronicities made a Catholic priest, Father William Wasson, who oversaw the adoption process at his orphanage, and he refused to let any children be adopted, because he said it would make the ones who weren't feel bad. But when I was born in 1977 at 7:11 a.m. on Mother's Day, he went, whoa, God has other plans for this kid. And my family, whose business was 7-Eleven, was like, he went, oh, God has other plans. He sent me the sign. She's going with them. So at 5 days old, I was whisked away from what would have been a life of extreme poverty into getting to be in a house like this and have a yard like this. And most importantly, because I was born with a hearing loss. So if I spoke to you the way I often hear, if you came up to me and it was a real loud room and you said, "How are you having a good day?" I might hear, "Oh." And the ability to actually make out and have a nice day came from learning to read lips, came the ability to speak. I spoke in the White House, the House of Lords, the United Nations. That came from people putting on rubber gloves that shaped my tongue and said crown, crayon. And I learned it the way a dancer learns choreography. My tongue choreography. And that's why I can speak to you as well as I do now. The ability to not die from asthma that would have otherwise killed me, or from seizures, or from migraines that kept me trapped in excruciating pain and not being dehydrated from that when they would last for a week at a time and I have to be in a closet in abject pain. All of the ability to survive a lot of that, the ability to have hearing aids early on in my life, all that stuff was because of the finances that my family had. And all of that came about because I happened to be born at the right moment in time, the right year, and literally 7:11 a.m. in the morning. And if I had been born at 7:10, if I had been born on May, in May 1976, if I had been born on a day that was a Mother's Day, I might not even be here. So that was the first big miracle. Now, doing the work that I do in the world, another incredible, and there's too many to name, but there's a reason why I'm sharing some of this with you. One time my husband and I were asked by Leila Story, he said, "Help, we in the Hopi Nation, something happened to all of our corn. It's not growing this year. We need help." And so I immediately started researching, and I found out there's a company that would sell us at cost the blue corn, and obviously they had already lost a lot of their season, so I needed to get it already ground so they could make it from time, because if you think of a donut, the Hopi are the donut hole and the Navajo or the donut. And the tradition is that the Navajo had the goats, the Hopi had the corn, and for hundreds of years they would exchange. So if one of them didn't have what they needed, then that exchange wouldn't happen, and both tribes would suffer. And they're like, "We need this." So I ended up researching, and the way to get all the corn masa that they needed was going to cost $65,000 and down to something like 25 cents. It was I'm rounding, it was a larger, more exact number than that. Well, my husband and I, because my inheritance was put in trust, didn't mean that I have free access to it. I had a set amount that I could get every month. But we calculated if we didn't pay the electric bill, if we didn't, that we were opening the garage by hand. We weren't in this house, we were in a much smaller place. We walked to the grocery store. We did all these things for me. And then a check came in the mail, and my grandmother, years before I was born, she had made an investment, and decades and decades later, after I was born, she passed away, and it was in her will that after so much time, when this investment closed, it was to be divided equally by all of her grandchildren, of which I was one of many, many, many. And it came down to exactly the $65,000, and again, it was a much more exact number. I've rounded there all the way to like that's percentage. To me, that is a miracle. There are so many things like that I've seen as I've walked this path in life, and it made me think of something, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to be out here. You can see all these beautiful plants and whatnot, and something my father used to say, which he was my first spiritual teacher. My father would tell me, everyone wants a burning bush. Everyone wants a big, deep voice coming from beyond. They want the sun to come down on them, and they want levitation. They want miracles. But if you look at a tree, that is a freaking miracle. The more I learned about science and how photosynthesis works, you see all these beautiful plants, and you see that sun up in that sky. That sunlight is eaten by the plants. Those plants take that sunlight in, and if we eat an herb or a fruit, we're imbibing sunlight from that. Our bodies are made of stardust that, through an unbelievable set of circumstances, with the moon creating tides just so, with our Goldilocks located planet that's not too far, not too close to the sun, just the right range for life to sprout, all these unbelievable miracles that led to you and me being alive and having this exchange right now are absolutely undeniable. And in many ways, frankly, they're more impressive than a big voice speaking out of a bush. And the gift of that beauty and realization is there for every single one of us. So when people ask me where my church is, it's here. It's this world. And I have yet to find a single religious text that does not also talk about the beauty of creation and how it's been entrusted to us. Here right now, I've been helping a friend of mine who has been taking a task on writing a new Torah, and that's not the easiest thing. It's one of the things that I'm underwriting. And he talks about how in the original ancient, text, that when Adam and Eve were in the garden, people weren't told you are in charge of all things. Instead, they were told you are responsible for all things. And that it was when the Greeks put an interpretation of the Bible that things got a bit messed up. But if we go back to that original thing and we realize we are responsible for all this, and you can hear the traffic going in the background, well, every person driving on that car that you're hearing in the background here, I'll never know who they are. They have lives, they have loved ones, they have passions, they have things that have hurt them or are hurting them. They have things that have lifted them or are uplifting them. Most of us in this life are a mixture of all of that happening at the same time. Look at me right now. I'm recovering from a migraine. I'm enjoying what to me is an absolute miracle. Look at the sky. I'm enjoying an absolute miracle of being in the sunlight. Earlier, yesterday, when I went to the chiropractor to literally get my spine back where it needed to be after my seizure dislocated it, I had to wear a face covering. My husband had to drive me out there. And yet, I had a husband that drove me out there. I had the invention of the car that got me there. I had Dr. Toy Sabo, who was able to do what he did to get my head and my spine back correctly so that I wouldn't be in a loop of endless migraines and seizures. I had the blessing of having this house to sleep in a dark room in, and so that I could recover and be right here and be breathing in this air and hearing that bird. I was told one time I was supposed to be completely deaf at the age of 30, and certainly by 40. I'm 47 now, and I'm enjoying the sounds of nature. I am a living, breathing, walking miracle. And so are you. I don't know what challenges you've gone through. I don't know what horrors you've seen. And I don't know what beautiful things have affected you and things that have just lifted and touched your heart and made you go, oh my God, what an incredible world. All of us have had those extremes because we have been brought into what I like to call the classroom. This world is rigged to be in balance. And that means when things get to be really, really amazingly good, we often find a challenge. And that means when things get to be really, really, really bad, we often find something that unlocks us our way into a better doorway. Ever wondered why? God, everything was just going so right. Why am I getting a wrench in it? Or ever wondered how, God, everything, I feel so hopeless. Where'd that door come from? And sometimes it's because a friend just whispers the right thing in your ear. And sometimes it's because an enemy disses you in a way that, wait a minute, that's not even accurate. And you have a wake-up moment. Sometimes it has nothing to do with people, but you're just walking along a path and you realize there's an answer in the way that butterfly lands on a flower. Maybe it tells you about hope, because you relate to how that butterfly had to struggle and it was a caterpillar and thought all hope was lost and emerged with even stronger wings. Sometimes we stump our toe and we get all furious and we're angry and we realize it was our own idiocy. This world is full of so many lessons. And the biggest, deepest ones for me are, number one, it's not all about you. And that's a hard one because we're each the hero in our epic storyline. Each of us has gone through so much that no one else could possibly understand and surmount so much and no one feels the way we do. And there's a reason for that. If you want to take the biblical approach, one of my favorite moments is there's a moment where God says to Moses, if it weren't for me, you would not exist. And Moses looks back up at God and says, and I like to imagine a drag queen doing this, because it's like a bunch of, I couldn't imagine having this kind of sass to God, the Lord God. Well, God says, if it weren't for me, you would not exist. And Moses goes, well, if it weren't for me, no one would know you exist. It's like, girl. You just imagine, like RuPaul, girl, if it weren't for me, no one would know you exist. That head going back and forth. But there's some truth in that beautiful story. Why was that? Why did the ancients bother to write that down? Because if you truly believe nothing was here before Spirit, and Spirit spoke this world into being, then that means all of us, our individual souls, each have a piece of Spirit. Now, the Jewish tradition has a beautiful thing that they call the Shekinah, and it's known in Christianity as Sophia. In the Islamic tradition, it's a similar name. And it is often seen as the female consort to Yahweh. But there's another interesting metaphor where they talk about a giant crystal. And this giant crystal is broken up into hundreds of millions and millions and millions of pieces. And each one of those little pieces is a soul. And what that means is that that beautiful part of you that animates life in you is a little piece of the divine. Well, the beauty of that is that as you look out in this incredible world that we all live in, that when I look in your eyes, I see nothing less than the divine. And that means I have to respect you, even if you're my worst enemy, someone I can't stand. You are equal to me in every way, never less, never more. You're of value. You are beautiful because you are Spirit experiencing this world as you. My name is Marianne. I am Spirit experiencing this world as Marianne. And if Spirit experiencing this world as you has really resonated with a Christian doctrine, then that is beautiful because that is Spirit calling and touching you through the beautiful word of Jesus Christ. And if something has touched you so deeply and lifted you up and ends up being the Prophet Muhammad, and that leads you to feeding the hungry, to caring for this planet, to wanting to make a difference in this world, and that is a beautiful thing. And if Spirit has in some way or fashion reached out to touch you, because what the words of Moses and Noah and Ezekiel spoke to you, and they speak to you through the Torah, then that's a beautiful thing. And if Spirit has reached out to you because you are Native American and your ancestors speak to you in that way, the way I feel Spirit speak to me often through the Tolteca tradition, guess what? That is also a beautiful thing. And just like this beautiful sun is made of the star dust that makes our bodies, that makes this world, and just as all the miracles that led to that raw material of stardust to create life on this planet, and all of our ancestors that fought so hard so that we could exist today, and the countless unimaginable journeys of each of those people lived so that you could be alive. Who are we to do anything less than to live up and be the best person we can be? Now, to me, a proselytization comes from an attempt to share this beautiful joy that your path has given you to be in touch with Creator. Then I say to you, with all full heart, thank you for caring deeply enough about the soul and spirit that exists within me, that came from the same source that yours does, to want to share that joy with me. However, if you feel the need to diss my relationship with Spirit, well, then you're wasting your time. Because it's the one thing that nothing could take from me. I could lose my health, I could lose my home, And believe me, I've lost some incredibly painful things. I've lost my mother last year. I've lost my father years before that. I have lost people that mean the world to me. I've lost money. I've had times when my health was at risk, but nothing can get rid of spirit. That is a priceless gift no one can take from you, and no one can take from me. So when it comes to proselytization, if you're trying to convince someone to think the way you do, ask yourself first, is it because it's coming from a place of joy and generosity to want to uplift someone? Or is it coming because there's something hurting in you and you're only going to feel better if you diss somebody? One way is lifting people up. One way is putting people down. Which are you? Where is it coming from? And how, instead of focusing so much on judging the other, how can I serve the other? Because when I get up every day, and I am far from imperfect, I can tell you a zillion sins that I do. I sin all the time. I enjoy watching violent movies. I cuss. You know, I've looked at porn. I've written erotic literature. I have done a million bad things in my life. And I've done a lot of good things in my life too. I'm a flawed, imperfect human being that is just simply blessed to live in a world where Spirit has given me the privilege to help other people. And I can't imagine not doing that. That's what I feel. And I hope for you that whatever religion you come from, that it uplifts you and inspires you to be the best human being you can be. So that's my answer to all the people proselytizing. I send you my love and sincere hope that you get to have a wonderful day and are off to a beautiful life, and that if my words in some way have uplifted you, please know that you are respected and that somebody out there wants the absolute best in this world for you. Thank you.